Justin Bieber might get his peaches down in Georgia, but I get mine from Chilton County, Alabama, my home state. Today, I am making a cake for you that is so delicious using roasted peaches. Now, roasting your fruit enhances the flavor. It's a total game changer, and you are gonna love this cake. It comes from the July-August issue of Bake From Scratch. So we're gonna get started and get into the deliciousness right this second. All right, let's talk about our peaches. It smells so good because a ripe peach should smell amazing. And I'm gonna show you a trick right now to get the pit out of a peach without having to go to all the fuss and muss of peeling a peach, which we're not even doing that in this recipe, but this is gonna be such a fun trick. Your friends are gonna love it. You're gonna take some pliers and insert it into the center of the peach, grab onto your pit, clamp down and twist, and out comes the pit. Y'all like that? Do you like that? Yes, you do. All right, so once you have the pit out of the peach, like I said, no peeling, just take a nice sharp knife and you're gonna cut your peach in half because we're gonna be roasting these in halves before proceeding into chopping them for the recipe. So now, if your peach is not as ripe as the one that I just showed you, you can also take a sharp knife and take your peach and just cut it almost avocado style. So I'm just rotating the peach under the sharp knife. Then I take my hands and kind of avocado style, pull it apart like that. Then we can get our pliers to come in here and help us get the pit out of the peach. Grab on and just lift it out. So now, these two halves on the sheet, and they're gonna join the other peaches that I already prepared so we can get them ready for roasting in the oven. Like I said before, roasting your fruit is such a great way to get the flavor of the fruit into your baked goods. How many times have you made something where you think it's gonna taste good with strawberries or peaches or something that has such a great flavor on its own, but then you put it in the baked good, you bake it up, and the flavor's not there? And I find that a lot with peaches, to be honest. So, roasting fruit is the game changer. So what we're doing is we're adding sugar, and this is going to caramelize with the fruit. So the sugar is going to enhance the flavor, and then we're going to put some melted butter in here too because, well, butter makes everything better. And then we're just going to toss all of this together. So make sure you're coating the peaches in the butter, getting the sugar tossed all around as you can on the backs and the insides where you've cut and taken out the pit. So it should start to look a little glossy because of the sugar and that butter getting a nice shine on here. And you can even take the sugar and butter mixture and just move those peaches through. All right, we're gonna start by roasting these in a 425-degree oven. Obviously, I've got a rimmed baking sheet that I've put some parchment on, and they're gonna roast for 10 minutes with the cut side down. After 10 minutes, you're gonna turn your peaches to the cut side up, and then you're gonna let them bake another 7 to 10 minutes until fork tender. So that's when you can take the fork, push it through the fruit, and you don't get any resistance. After they roast, you let them cool completely on the pan, and then we'll move forward with the recipe after these are done. Peaches are roasted. They look delicious. They smell really good. I promise you, this is so oh, you're gonna love it. It's such a good kitchen trick. All right, reserve 4 ounces of your roasted peach. We're gonna come back to that at the end and use the peach in the glaze. Then you're gonna chop the remaining peaches that you've roasted. So you're just gonna take your knife and, I mean, it just slides right through the roasted fruit. And so just cut some big chunks, and then I'll come back and slice into some smaller pieces, and then we'll get a little bit of a finer chop so we get these peaches distributed beautifully into the cake. You can see just how easy this is. And then don't sleep on this roasted peach juice that's over here on the pan. You could use that in a cocktail or in the glaze or anywhere else. It's just caramelized, sugary peach juice. All right, chopping these peaches just roughly here. And now we're ready to make a cake. Hey bakers, I hope you're loving today's video, and if you are, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel so that we can keep all the baking fun going together. And you'll also find in the description a link to the recipe and information about how you can be a part of the Bake from Scratch baking community. Now, let's get back in the kitchen and keep the baking going. Let's keep the cake baking going. I have my stand mixer with the paddle attachment, and you can use the standard paddle attachment to cream your butter and sugar, but I really love using the rubber edge paddle because it helps to cream the butter and sugar without me having to scrape so much. So let's get all of that in the bowl of the stand mixer to get started. And what we're looking for here is maybe about a 3 to 4 minute process of getting the butter and sugar combined and then nice and fluffy. Now, I always prepare my dry ingredients as well at the same time that I'm creaming butter and sugar, just to save time in the kitchen and you're not standing here just staring into the stand mixer. But start on low speed, let the sugar and the butter combine. You don't want the sugar flying out of the bowl, so you want to gradually get this up to a faster pace to cream the butter and sugar. So once I see that the butter and sugar have combined, the sugar's not flying around the bowl. All right, dry ingredients. So I have a large bowl with all-purpose flour, and then to this I'm gonna add some kosher salt, I'm gonna add baking powder, and then I'm going to add an ingredient that I absolutely love, Chinese 5-spice powder. And you will love the flavor. It's warm notes that you'll just perfectly love the combination of the peach flavor with the 5-spice. I am such a big fan of using 5-spice. If you do not like using Chinese 5-spice in recipes, my mom was super sensitive to the flavor. She did not like it at all, and she could tell if I used like even the smallest amount in a recipe. Just substitute for other warm spices that you love. So maybe cinnamon, maybe use a pumpkin pie spice combo blend. Just something warm is going to pair beautifully with the flavor of the peaches in the recipe. So dry ingredients are combined. Let's do one more combination to get everything ready to go into the mixer. I've got some buttermilk, and then to this I'm adding vanilla extract, and I'm going to quickly whisk these together. And this is going to make the process even more simple as we get all of this in the stand mixer. Now I'll stop and scrape. Did you see my spatula? Baker's gonna bake. Bakers are gonna bake. This is the spatula that I designed with Williams-Sonoma and No Kid Hungry for their annual spatula collection as we fight to end childhood hunger. So I was super honored to be a part of that program again, and even more excited to have a Baker's Gonna Bake spatula that has some of my favorite French baked goods on it. So maybe you need one of these in your kitchen too. Like I said, Baker's Gonna Bake. All right, I've scraped through the sides and bottom of the bowl. The butter and sugar are getting nice and fluffy. And then I'm gonna bring in the mixer just a little closer so that I can start adding my eggs. So I have large eggs that are room temperature, and then I have one egg white, and we're gonna add these one at a time, letting the egg fully combine before adding the next. And I always take the speed of the stand mixer up a little bit too after I add that egg. And this just helps to get it nice and combined. I like to say emulsification, so we're using big words in the kitchen. But once you see that the shiny part of the egg has been absorbed into the butter sugar mixture, then you can add the next. And so this doesn't overwhelm the butter mixture. If you add all of the eggs at one time, you'll see that it just wants to fight in the bowl. It might eventually get there, but this is the best way to do it. The building blocks of baking. Pick the speed up. You can see it's getting nice and fluffy again, and this rubber edge of the paddle making a big difference. Otherwise, I'd want to stop and scrape the bowl just to make sure all the butter and sugar are getting combined evenly with the eggs. And I'll do that here in a minute as well, just to make sure I have all of it scraped from the sides and bottom of the bowl, and then of course off the paddle in case any butter bits, see this right here, clinging to the paddle. All right, with the eggs in, we're gonna add our egg white. And then we'll begin by alternating our wet and dry ingredients. So that's the flour mixture and the buttermilk mixture. We're gonna begin and end with the dry ingredients, and we'll have 2 additions of the buttermilk mixture. So keep that in mind as you start to add it to the stand mixer. So on the lowest speed, I'll take my spatula and add roughly 1/3 of the dry ingredients before I add any of the buttermilk mixture. So for this, I like to look in the bowl of the mixer and see that the dry ingredients have been absorbed into that butter base. And then once I see that they've been just combined, I'll begin by adding 1/2 of the buttermilk mixture with that vanilla. Now the buttermilk in this recipe is gonna not only give you flavor from the tang, but it also creates a nice soft texture. So you'll love working with buttermilk. The flavor's incredible, but it also gives you a different texture in your baked goods. And then you're gonna have this mix until just combined. And when we say just combined, we mean the second that you see any dry ingredients or the flour is absorbed into the mixture. So I'm gonna do one last stop and scrape, and then we'll get everything combined, and then it'll be time to go in the baking pan. I even take the bowl off just to get a really nice, thorough scrape through the sides on the bottom. For baking this recipe, I'm gonna get my mixer out of the way. For baking this recipe, we will be baking in a 10-cup bundt pan. But you could use any 10-cup fluted edged cake pan that you like. Just make sure the capacity is at least 10 cups to hold all of the batter. You know what we forgot to do was get our peaches in the batter. So let me set the pan aside for just one quick second. And now let's keep moving with our cake batter. Remember those chopped peaches? Now we are going to take a little bit of the all-purpose flour that we reserved. So we held back 3 tablespoons from our ingredients, and we are going to coat the peaches in the flour. I'm taking my peaches and I'm coating them in an all-purpose flour. This helps to suspend the peaches in the cake batter, kind of puts a little bit of a barrier here with the dry ingredients so that they don't sink, so they get set in the batter. So after tossing those in flour, we're now gonna fold them into the cake batter. So now the peaches meet the deliciousness of 5-spice. For folding. So now that I have my batter completely made, I don't want to overmix. So what I'm wanting to do is evenly distribute the peaches without overmixing the cake batter. So for that, I take my spatula to the 12 o'clock position in the mixing bowl, and I take it through the batter to the 6 o'clock position, and then I give the bowl a quarter turn. So for folding, it's 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, give a quarter turn. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, give a quarter turn. You can see I'm just gently moving the cake batter over the peaches and getting them evenly distributed. Once I see that they're completely mixed in, you'll stop folding, stop mixing, and then take your batter to the baking pan. But this is going to be so full of peach and delicious flavor from the 5-spice, and you can already smell it just here in the mixing bowl. All right, with the peaches evenly distributed, we'll now head to that 10-cup bundt pan that you've sprayed with a baking spray with flour. Never, ever, 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 ever spray your nonstick bakeware with a cooking spray. The cooking spray strips that nonstick coating, making it not function the way you want it to, and then you think something's wrong with the recipe, when in fact, it might be just the way you've been taking care of the pan. So always use a baking spray with flour. Now, your cake batter goes into the pan. Try not to capture any large air bubbles, but I'll show you a trick that we're going to use to prevent the air bubbles from being present. Trying hard not to eat all the cake batter as it comes out of the pan. I know it needs to go in the oven, but don't worry, I'll save some for myself. Baker's snack. Are you team eat cake batter? If you are, get in the comments and tell me. And then if your team don't, you don't have to go in there and say anything. Just tell me if you like it. Team dough, team batter, all the way. With our batter in the pan and a little bit in the bowl for me, I am now going to take a kitchen towel and place it on the surface because I want to make sure the batter gets completely settled into the beautiful grooves of the pan, and I don't want to have any large air bubbles. So this is a nice trick to get your batter settled in the pan and to get air bubbles out. You're going to give it a few firm taps. And you can see it starts to spread the batter out in the pan. You can also take an offset spatula if you'd like and give it an even more smooth top before going into the oven. But after tapping it on the counter, you honestly don't need to do that. Now this is off to the oven to bake until a wooden pick inserted near the center comes out clean. Or if you're using an instant read thermometer, which is a very accurate way to know that your cake is completely baked, you'll want to see 205 degrees Fahrenheit on your thermometer to know that it's completely baked. This takes about 1 hour and 35 minutes to 1 hour and 45 minutes. And then after that, you let it cool in the pan for 15 minutes before turning it out onto a wire rack to let your cake cool completely. Oh, look at that beautiful cake. Why don't we add a glaze? Remember the peaches that we reserved after roasting? Well, now they have their moment because we're going to use the juices from these peaches in the glaze. So with a spatula, you're going to take your roasted peaches and just simply press with a fine mesh sieve, and then you'll catch the juice below. And then that's what we're going to use in the glaze. So this may take a little bit of time, but just press with the spatula and really get the juice from the peach into the bowl below. Because what I don't use in the glaze is going to be headed to a peach old-fashioned, if you heard. Roasted peach juice or roasted fruit juices are great to use in cocktails or glazes or smoothies or wherever you just want that intense fruit flavor. Don't forget to scrape under the bottom of your sieve to get all the juice off, and then we're ready to make the glaze. All right, we are looking for 3 tablespoons of our peach juice, and we're simply going to whisk it together with confectioner's sugar and vanilla extract. So 3 tablespoons or 45 grams, so we give you the weight. 1. Let's see if we got accurate on our juice. Perfect. I'm even going to scrape the rest out of the bowl because at this point, we know we want it. Add your vanilla extract. And then we'll whisk this to combine until nice and smooth. And then we'll get this glaze on the cake. And when you're adding liquids and things to your confectioner's sugar, at first it may look really clumpy and you may feel the urge to add more liquid, but don't do that yet. You want to make sure that once the confectioner's sugar absorbs the liquid, you'll notice that after that it starts to relax a little bit more too. So it may take just a little bit of time whisking and getting everything combined. But if you see that your glaze is thicker than you want, you can always add more of the reserved peach juices, or you could even add a little bit of milk if you wanted to, or even water helps. But do it in small quantities because it can really loosen the glaze a lot faster than you think. And then your glaze should be a little thicker in the bowl than maybe what you even think it should look like, because it will just continue to get a little bit looser before you put it on the cake. Now this glaze has a nice peach color to it, perfect for the flavor, and it's going to look great on top of this cake. And you can see what I'm talking about. I did not add any more liquid to this glaze, but as it's absorbed into the confectioner's sugar, you can see it's nice and glossy and smooth with that roasted peach juice in it. All right, I've got the beautiful peach glaze. And like I said, the glaze is thicker than you think it should be. We're gonna just spoon it onto the top of the cake or into the ridges, wherever you want it to go. And then you're gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes before serving. And you'll see that the glaze just gets nice and relaxed and into the grooves of the pattern of the pan. So I just spoon right onto the top of the cake, and then I let it settle in on its own. But I could always use the spoon to push some down where I want it to go. So whatever you have in mind. After putting the glaze on your cake, you want to let it sit for about 30 minutes. That way the glaze is going to get nice and settled. You can see that it's kind of moving on its own into the little grooves of the cake, but now it's perfectly set and ready to be enjoyed. And you know, you are not going to have to ask me twice to cut into this cake. I'm thinking I need a big piece because this is going to be so good. And when you see the peaches distributed throughout this slice, look at that. Oh my goodness. Peach throughout, man. You can still smell that 5-spice, and I just know it's gonna be perfect. Gotta get some glaze on that bite too. Gotta get it all, every bit. It's so good. The cake is nice and soft. It's like, I could just have to dance about it for a minute too. Okay, work that out, and then here's what you're tasting. Nice soft cake. The peaches are so sweet and caramelized from roasting. The 5-spice is such a subtle but warm note in there. I cannot wait to hear what you think about this when you make it, everybody. I've had so much fun sharing this recipe with you, and now it's your turn. Preheat your ovens, everybody. It's time to bake.